of a proposal to differences between president and his deputy. Jubilee leaders' proposal to change the party's colors, logo and slogan to work its severance of ties with Deputy President William Ruto has divided President Uhuru Kenyatta's camp. Now, a majority of members say that it's unwise and unnecessary despite, their differences between him and his deputy. And right now, Jubilee Deputy Secretary General Joshua Kutuny, a former political advisor of the president, said that they would shed off colors associated with the DP's defunct United Republic Party, that is URP, which merged with the National Alliance, with the National Alliance, that is TNA, and 10 other parties in 2016 to form the coalition. So it's a split of the proposal to rebrand the party. Now, the president's cancelled Ukambani tour back on after intense lobbying. Initially, he had cancelled after, some push and pull amongst the Ukambani leaders who some would say were going to derail that president's 3-day tour of Ukambani. But after intense lobbying culminated in a decision by President Uhuru Kenyatta to rescind an earlier cancellation of his planned tour of Ukambani region. Now, hours after the office of the president announced that his planned 2-day tour of the 3 counties had been called off, Indefinite President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday hosted Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and governors from Ukambani for talks that revised the trip. So the meeting, which was hurriedly convened at State House, Nairobi, discussed ways of reviving the tour under strict adherence to COVID-19 protocols and to patch up political bickering that triggered the last-minute cancellation of the president trip of the region. As I take a break from there, let me toss it over to Doreen.
Continue with what is actually making headlines in the different dailies. On the front page of the People's Daily, COVID-19 does not miss, at least given the fact that we have been informed that perhaps in July, around August, we should be expecting another wave. But the header on the People's Daily concerning COVID-19 is that Kenya's risk losing COVID-19 funding, and this is over KEMSA fraud. You can remember that this has been ongoing at least for some time since earlier this year there. But this story has been cut out from page 6 through 8, and I'll be telling you more about it in just a short while. On the sidebar of the same paper, fueled Ukambani leaders cut Uhuru trip. This in regards to the trip that the head of state was supposed to make in the eastern side of the country. That was in Monday. That it was actually supposed to be a 2-day state visit, but that was cut off, and I'll be telling you why that actually happened just at the last hour. Coming to what detectives are now probing towards, that is Gachagua, where the intricate web in MP's 12 billion fortune, and detectives are now have now pieced together details on how Gachagua registered 49 companies which he used to mint millions and cover his tracks. Again, cases to do with corruption still always never misses in the papers, at least And coming to the police force or the police service and the issues that have been happening there. Now, number of police with mental illness worries bosses, and this in regards to the meeting that the IG had yesterday with the police force, and just trying to bring out some of the issues that has resulted to what is happening in the police force. Also, details of that will be coming in a short while. On the front page of the Standard, Uhuru's men turn guns on each other, and this is after kicking out rebels allied to DP Ruto. The ruling Jubilee party is now rocked by fresh infighting for its control, signaling a possible strategy by some insiders for a post-Uhuru Kenyatta leadership of the party. So what does this mean for the Jubilee party, even as we gear up for the 2022 election slated for August? Time will tell. All right, coming to matters teachers, where teachers pay boom as state unlocks NAT million, and this in regards to the long-suffering teachers who hang on to a sinking union to get between 192,000 and 360,000 in backdated salaries deal. So that is what is happening on the in NAT. That is in regards to matters teachers. On the sidebar of the Standard, there's rather can mention a sad story. if I can say this in regards to rapists and robbers who are now stuck with sentences. Again, we've been hearing a lot of issues and concerns when it comes to matters gender-based violence, but always the question is, what happens to these perpetrators? So this article well highlights that. And also, churches protest against high taxes, where the umbrella body of Kenyan churches has condemned punitive taxation, called for postponement of the Building Bridges initiative, and demand strict adherence to the 2022 electoral calendar. Just trying to say that there's no need to postpone or push the elections. That is what is coming up there on the front page of the PD as well as the Standard.
Okay. All right, so let's continue with what's happening on the Daily Nation here. Okay, the story still continues, and that story of the president cancelling his Ukambani tour is still making, headlines. And let's talk about Kirubi's son-in-law takes board seat at Centum Real Estate. Andrew Musangi will oversee the running of the multi-billion shillings business that owns chunks of land in Nairobi, Mombasa and Kampala. Now, son-in-law to billionaire, the late Chris Kirubi, has been appointed to the board of Centum Real Estate, pointing to a possible reorganization of the deceased tycoon's empire. Now, Centum Real Estate, a subsidiary fully owned by Nairobi Security Exchange listed Centum Investment Company, has appointed Andrew Musangi to sit in the board. So that is there, at least to make sure that the whole process and the board is well reorganized. Now, there's that story of former NAT SG, that is Wilson Sosion, who says that be caution. Sosion cautions NAT, explains why he wept. So the nominated MP attributed shedding tears to memories of his humble beginnings in Bomet, and said that teachers unions warned against accepting non-monetary CBA in the ongoing pay rise talks. Remember, as it is, the teachers already got the NAT Secretary General, who is the new boss, that is Collins Ayu, already has a communication with the TSC of a meeting convened next week to iron out and agree on the CBA, that is on the CBA which was signed thereabout. So that is former Sec Gen of NAT says that the new leaders will be walking into a trap if they happen to sign and agree to the ongoing negotiations on the pay rise for teachers. Okay, so quiver shooting, there is that story there which was caught on CCTV, court to rule on the bond plea. Now, a Nairobi court will today rule on whether a man accused of shooting 2 police officers and a woman at a popular city club should be freed on bond as detectives conclude their investigations. Senior Principal Magistrate Zainab Abdul will determine whether Mr. Dixon Njanja Mararo should be detained for 14 days to allow police to finalize investigations on the incident that occurred at Quiver Lounge in Kasarani Sub-County. So Mr. Mararo said could face charges of attempted murder if that case go the direction. Now, 2 MPs crosshairs over money market loss. So lawmakers will question Capital Markets Authority Chief Executive Officer Wycliffe Shamia on Thursday over the regulatory failures that led to the loss of 36 billion shillings of investors' money. That's a huge money there. So, of course, we have got that picture there of Deputy President William Ruto and Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni during laying a foundation stone for the construction of the biological drugs and mRNA vaccine manufacturing plant under the Day Biopharma at Matuga in Wakiso district yesterday. That is in Uganda, where the deputy president was in attendance. All right, so this is it. So police pursue love triangle theory in officer's killing. A woman he had an affair with went on the run after the shooting. All right, police are pursuing a love triangle theory in the brutal killing of police constable John Ogweno, as new evidence reveals the officer and his lover were entangled in a web of illicit affairs. Now, preliminary investigations have shown that Mr. Ogweno, who is 28 years old, and Corporal Caroline Kangogo, 34, who was his lover and whose whereabouts are still unknown, had affairs with other people. All right. We leave it at that and then let the investigations continue. Doreen.
All right, now let's come to matters COVID-19, and this is just what the Global Fund also, through the director, mentioned yesterday, as he warned that Kenya is now risking losing 3 billion. This is due to KEMSA scandal. So listen to this. Kenya risks losing 3.1 billion funding from major donors, and this is to fight COVID-19 due to the multi-billion scandal at KEMSA. The Global Fund yesterday warned that the country could miss out on donor funding if it does not address the issues of corruption allegations surrounding the supply of PPEs, which, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's something that we really had, especially early this year as well as late last year, concerning the KEMSAs, the various issues concerning the KEMSA scandal. So the head of grants at the Global Fund, that is Mark Eddington, asked the government to expedite investigations into KEMSA scandal and also cooperate on the ongoing audit of the agencies. He further on continued to say that we are all aware of the recent allegations of corruption at KEMSA. We know investigations have been going on and some are completed. It is important that we have commitments from all stakeholders to ensure that KEMSA's challenges, including governance, transparency and accountability, are resolved. So also we know that the Global Fund released some cash which is supposed to go towards the fight against HIV, malaria and TB yesterday, which is a good reprieve, for especially HIV patients. But on the flip side, this is something that we might also makes us suffer as a country because of the issues of corruption that we face here as a country. And Vic, I just want to bring you on board, because earlier on, even when we were looking at what the front page of the PD had, issues to do with corruptions were not missing. This in regards to MP Gachagua there. Now we have another case in regards to us missing funding as a country because of the corruption cases that we've been hearing, especially around KEMSA, saying that yes, investigations are done, but it's like nothing is moving forward. Look at how corruption is costing us as a country. Yeah,
investigations will continue. We know that investigations will continue, and
and they happen all the time.
Yeah, the wheel of justice might be very slow, as they say. It's a cliche statement, but ultimately we always say that we believe that something will ultimately be done. And for those people who lost their money, the taxpayer should get justice out of that, and every coin should be accounted for.
All right. Now, still sticking up with the COVID-19, listen to also what the WHO is warning against easing COVID-19 rules, saying that actually that is the WHO now has warned governments around the world. This is against easing COVID-19 restrictions too soon, saying that countries that did not that did so risked paying a heavy price for rushing back to normalcy. And this was actually speaking at a press briefing on Monday, just the other day. The UN Health Agency's top agency's expert, that is Microfinance, said a new wave of infections could be around the corner. And he also noted that for much of the world, the pandemic was just getting started. So in other words, this article just highlights what we need to do as countries, and the WHO is now warning against doing away with the restriction measures, saying that we are not yet out of the woods. We still need to ensure that we protect ourselves and take care of ourselves as a people. Away from matters COVID-19, let's come to what has been happening at the police force and the different kind of issues we are hearing, especially at the police force when it comes to murder cases, and even how the police are living at large, whereby now this particular article just highlights how a number of police with the mental illnesses worries their bosses. Again, this is just what is forming the basis of the background of why we are hearing about so many murder cases around the police force. So this just says that a third of police officers in the country are heavy drinkers. This particular article highlights that, and that is the latest. It has emerged that way, saying that a large number of officers across all ranks are also servicing loans, which leave them with less than a third of their monthly salary, and is now forcing them to resort to corrupt practices to make end meet. It has come to the attention of the IG, National Police Service, that many police officers have committed their monthly salaries to below a third of their basic salary, contrary to the government regulations, states an internal memo from the NPS. Also, the memo states that the habit of taking huge loans had compromised the integrity of police officers who are tempted to indulge in corruptions to fill the financial gap. So just alluding to these mental illnesses, especially in the police force, to heavy drinking as well as taking up of huge loans, to just perhaps finance their lives. And I mean, Victor, when you talk about the police force and the police service, especially in recent times, we've heard of so many murder cases, and you're trying to imagine what could be the issue. What is the problem
now,
with the police force?
There was a convention yesterday which was held by the county commanders yesterday.
Yeah.
And part of the investigations which was, part of the report which was tabled before the members was that most of the police officers tend to suffer the kind of depression that they go through because one, you find that there's a lot of unwarranted transfers.
Yeah.
So today you are here, the next minute you are thrown to Lamu, far away from your families, all right?
And psychologically,
and
not even been prepared.
you're not prepared for such kind of movement. And they say that some of these police officers also work under tight, working environment. That is according to the report. They work under tight environment and they stare at death at every given point they go to work. So they stare at death. That's according to a report that you find that they're constantly stressed and they're anticipating that something bad might happen to them in the line of duty. So
just because of also what they've been doing.
That's because what they go through. And part of the report also said that they don't have time to spend with their family. They have got very strict work timelines and schedule. So you find that someone is working here and the family is far away from them, so they don't have time to to mingle with their family members, even with the public. So they find that they're just in their own world. That is part of the report which was tabled yesterday before that committee during that hearing. And I just hope that the government will take some of these things in consideration because some of these police officers are family members. So they need time. Also, they are also human beings. So it actually means also from this article, when you talk about them resorting to drinking, that is a byproduct of the many things they go through. Wow. It's just to run away from the situation and to hide away all their miseries.
So something needs to be done.
Something needs to be done.
All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, what do you have for us there?
Okay, let's take a look. And there's a story here. Construction of AfriCity Summit Center rolls out. The facility is expected to boost conference tourism in the Western region. So that was done. The preparations for the 9th AfriCity Summit to be held in Kisumu next year are in top gear. And guess what? There is a launch of construction of the 1.4 billion shillings AfriCity's Convention Center on Monday moved the lakeside city one step closer to the historic event. So the CS, that is Eugene Omalo, who is the Cabinet Secretary for Devolution, was there to witness the groundbreaking ceremony, of course accompanied by Governor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o of Kisumu, who also was there during that particular event. Now, hoteliers hope for migration boom as wild beasts cross into the Mara. That is some good story there. Hotels hopeful of a better season. And the bed occupancy rate that at Kikorok Lodge in the Masai Mara Game Reserve is hoping to attain by mid-July, according to the manager, is probably 50%. And of course, this spreads across all the hotels in the Mara. They hope that it's going to be a good season for them. And airlines on the Mara route have increased the number of flights to twice a day. Something to smile about. Now, the wild beast migration, this mating season is here again, and with it, the epic migration of the animals crossing Sand River from northern Serengeti in Tanzania to the Masai Mara Game Reserve will happen soon. You can say for that, it's been a stressful, almost 2 years of stressful conditions. It's been hard.
Yeah.
If you can spend a coin or two, you can have some fun. I don't know what you'll be doing, Doreen. All you'll be going to see bullfighting. Come on. No.
Why not? If you can spend a coin or two.
Wild beasts are not bulls. Wild beasts are not bulls.
I see where you're going with that, but I choose peace.
Choose peace. Choose peace. All right. So,
you know, in my community, everything that looks kind of big, is a representation of bulls. But it's wild-based, the wild-based migration.
Yeah, it will be interesting. So, right, if you can have a coin or two, you can save a coin or two. It will be a good moment for you to go there. All right. On that note, for the wild beast migration, let's also migrate briefly on a break, and then when we come back, tunaendelea na in the Good Morning Kenya, right?
Of course. The show is still on. So stick glued. And today we have interesting conversations.
Yes.
We don't want to miss that. All right.
We'll be right back.
Motiso, pikipiki yako ndio hii.
Uko shwani yangu.
Hii pikipiki ni unakumbuka uliekelea the lowest unique bid yako ilikuwa ngapi?
18 shillings.
18 shillings. Na unajua kuendesha hii gari?
Kidogo.
Haya, kitoko yako shika helmet, kifungu yako, chomoka na mali yako.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bid yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bid yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bid ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Hayawi huwa mbiu ya mgambo imelia, na kwa kawaida ikilia kuna jambo.
Mgambo uliopo hapa ni rumba kavacha, odemba na sukus.
Tutakupromoshea midundo moto ya Afrika, iwe kutoka kaskazini, kusini, magharibi na hata mashariki.
Rumba is here in your living room.
Na popote ulipo.
This is Bridge of a Congo.
Nzambe ya sambe la kati, ako sambe la nani?
Right here on KBC Channel 1.
What is he saying?
Relax though, relax.
Hey. Mkiingia hapa kwenye koti hapana kushikana.
Hey, cool down, man.
Mlijuana na yeye at what time?
Ayo mtoto amekaa 10 yote.
You see, you don't even know.
Kijui?
Yes, because you are a Tom and Jerry.
Nimekutison. I don't know you anymore.
Na nilisomesha wewe kuanzia primary.
Ilikuwa Harambee.
Secondary.
Harambee.
Natoa ngoja mimi na laani hiki dada.
Wewe mzee.
Wacha mimi sawa. Wacha mzee, wacha kutoa nguo.
What does this number mean to you? A pack leader? A winner? Or just a number? To us, it means freshness, boldness, vibrancy and heritage. That's why at KBC Channel 1, we make it easier for you to pop up your family entertainment to a fresh, exciting and colorful bouquet.
All right, and at 32 minutes past the top of the hour, time for our first conversation this morning. And being Wednesday, you know, we have to talk about lifestyle. And this morning, we're just trying to focus on female hygiene, specifically menstrual hygiene. What exactly goes into that? And also, what has really caused the fear in regards to having this kinds of conversation, especially in this 21st century? That is what is going to be your focus this morning. And on set, I'm joined by the lovely Cindy.
Hello, good morning, Doreen. Thank you for having me.
Good morning to you too. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I thought, you know, what you just said about, you know, what has caused the taboo. That was really interesting to me, that question, because, I mean, women have been menstruating forever, since Adam and Eve.
Yeah, since the days of Abraham. And, you know, since actually back in the day.
Yeah.
So you'd wonder what really is the issue.
Yeah, and I mean, and if you really think about it, everybody alive is alive because women are menstruating. So it's like, how did this thing become so taboo?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's a really interesting question. And, you know, I always think, you know, when children are born, they're born a blank slate.
Yeah.
And so what happens between the time they're born and the time a girl is, you know, 10, 11, 12 years old, when she starts her period, that leads her to be so ashamed that she won't even tell her mom.
Yeah, and Cindy will be coming to that in a short while as we build up on the conversation. But just to try and create a base, also for our viewers to understand what really has been your drive into just focusing on menstrual hygiene, because right now many people are coming up with just wanting to champion for proper menstrual hygiene for women.
Yeah.
So I'd want us to begin by first understanding what Vaji Life is all about. What is the inception behind this kind of organizational company?
Yeah, absolutely. So Vaji Life is a menstrual hygiene company, and what we do is we provide organic cotton products. And the reason that we went that route was because my personal experience was, so I was born and raised here in Kenya.
Yeah.
And I went to Precious Blood and then graduated from Precious Blood, and I got a Zawadi Africa scholarship.
So the English should not fool you. She's fully Kenyan.
Fully Kenyan, okay? Fully Kenyan.
Yeah.
But so I finished, and then I went to the States for college, and it was interesting because my high school experience was that every single time after my period, I would always have a rash. And so it became a synonymous thing with my period, to where I just thought, okay, I have my period, I have a rash, and then I get over it, in a few days, and that's just how it goes. But then I moved to the States, and it suddenly stopped. And it took me a few months to even notice that it stopped, because I expected it, right? And so then it stopped, and I was like, oh, this is a little strange. Anyway, so then I came back to visit a few times, and 3 years ago, I specifically had an experience where I used products while I was here, and I had that familiar rash again, and that's when it really hit me, and I said, oh my goodness, this whole time in high school, I always thought it was my body. And I think as women, we have that thing where we're like, no, it's me.
It's not the product. It's just me.
It's me. It's just me. And so then, but that was a moment where I realized, oh my goodness, it's the product.
Yeah.
That's what was causing my reaction. And, in that moment, I kind of went from this mindset of saying, oh, I'm the problem, to saying, oh, wait, the product is the problem, and my body is doing exactly what it should be doing in alerting me that there's a problem. And so also, when I was in school, in the start of my career, I was in quality assurance. That's, that was my trade. And so based on that experience, I started looking into it more and trying to understand what was causing these, these reactions. And I don't know if you remember, but the same 3 years ago, there was a hashtag My Always Experience. It was a big movement. And women were talking about their experience, and you were having these women coming out and talking about having burns and having rashes and having itch, and and so it was now suddenly women opening up and saying, oh, it's not me individually, it's as a collective we're experiencing these things. And so I started looking and seeing, okay, what is causing these things? And as I found out more, I realized that, there are fragrances and dyes and chemicals that, unfortunately have even been banned in some places, but there are in the products that we have, and, that's what was causing these reactions. And so for me, I've always been a person that really believes in justice and fairness. And so Vaji really was born out of that, and saying something has to be done and an alternative has to be provided where people can choose better, because as we find out more, as we know what is causing the reactions that we're having, then we can choose better.
All right, so Vaji was not coming up just in addition to what is already existing in the market, but it was coming up as a solution based. All right, now, aside from your experience, what exactly also informed your passion and drive for menstrual hygiene? Because the way I was mentioning earlier is that right now we're seeing so many people coming up with just trying to ensure that women can get proper menstrual hygiene. We're also seeing the reusable pads, being created across board. So what else was the other thing that drove you into just trying to ensure women get proper menstrual hygiene products and care?
Yeah, I think that's a great question that you ask. And a lot of the times when we think about our menstrual hygiene, we think about it as 3 to 5 days when we have our period, right? And for me, in understanding what the menstrual cycle is, and understanding that literally every single day of the month there is a biological, a chemical process that's happening in your body, and that's leading you to feel and act a certain way, or all of that. That's the reason I felt so passionate about menstrual hygiene, because it's not just the 3 days. Those 3 days affect the rest of your cycle for the rest of the month. And so you could be going through a whole year experiencing things and not understanding that it's also related to the things that you're using, the things that you're exposing yourself to during those 3 to 5 days, right? And so for me, at least on a personal level, that was a real motivation in understanding that menstrual hygiene goes beyond your period. It goes beyond the 3 to 5 days. And you know, when you look at Vaji, you know, I think it's a real representation of everything that we believe in, everything that my team believes in when it comes to, you know, okay, your product has to be quality, right? The way you receive it, it's a beautiful experience. Menstruation is a beautiful experience. It is the source of life. So we want it to be beautiful. And then not only that, we've got an app that will be available in a week. And so the reason that we went that route too was to educate women, to provide easy access to education, because there's things as simple as, you know, 3 days before your period, if you cut out sugars and carbs, then your experience is totally different while you're on your period. But a lot of people don't know that information. And so we wanted to provide that information at your fingertips and to really make menstruation and really the whole month, because the menstrual cycle is literally the whole month. It's not just those 3 days, that's your period. But we wanted to make sure that your cycle is taken care of, your cycle is comfortable and beautiful, and that, you know, it doesn't stop you from doing anything. You leave the house understanding what's going on in your body, and therefore, you know, you leave with power. You leave feeling like you understand, therefore nobody can tell you anything. You can maneuver your day.
You're good enough. You've mentioned something that I really want us to explore just a bit, at least also to get a better understanding, and also for people to appreciate why actually menstrual hygiene is a big deal and why women take it as a big deal, that it's not just a 3 to 4 days or 3 to 5 days kind of event the way we think about it. Maybe you can expound just a bit why it's actually an entire month kind of cycle and not just the 3 to 4 days that you actually get your period. What goes into you making it, say, you saying that it's not a 3 to 5 days, it's actually an entire month kind of process?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we'll get a little technical here, if that's okay.
That's why we are here. We're here to learn and understand why.
So literally the menstrual cycle is divided into 4 parts, right? And so you have the follicular phase, you have the luteal phase, you have your actual menstruation, and you have ovulation. And so all these parts are leading up to your period, right?
All these phases
are leading up to your period, right? And so you go from, you know, let me start from, you know, where your period is. So your period, that's the egg, it's being essentially it's been released, and now a baby has not, you know, come out of it, and so anyway, you have your period that comes out. But right after your period, you're going into an ovulation phase. Ovulation is where that egg is being released, you know, down the follicles, right? And so then the egg is released, and then you go into a phase where now, okay, the egg is waiting. It's like, what's going to happen here, right? What's next? And then it's like, okay, if it's not fertilized, which if it's fertilized, that leads into a pregnancy. But if it's not fertilized, then you're going closer into now the egg realizing that, okay, I can't survive in this environment for too long, so I'm going to need to make my way down and, you know, eventually come out as your period. And so everything is really interconnected, and this is those 4 weeks, like it's usually for most women, because the average cycle is 28 days, and then everything around that, you know, it's still normal, but 28 days is your average cycle. So if you divide that every 7 days, you're going through a part of the process, and that part of the process has its own symptoms. It has its own things that you need to do. So say if your progesterone level is high, then, you know, your skin is more sensitive, and so you need to know that, right?
That's why we see the breakouts?
Yes, that's why we see the breakouts, and that's why you'll see more sun damage in certain times of the month rather than others. So usually, like with our app, what we tell you is, so you track your cycle, and based on your cycle, we give you a personalized insight and tell you on this day, your progesterone level is high. Therefore, you're susceptible to sun damage, and so if you're going to be outside, either make sure you have some good protection, or if you don't have to go outside, stay away from the sun. So it's really giving you very personalized information to ensure that you, by the time you're walking out of the door, walking out of the house, you know exactly what's going on. So it's not hitting you as a shock, or nobody's telling you, oh, you're PMSing. You're saying, oh, I know what's going on in my body, so I'm walking with confidence because, you know, that's who I am. Nobody's telling me who I am. I'm showing up as who I am. you know.
Wow. So it means that actually this is an entire process, and I felt it was important for us to understand why it's not a 3 to 5 days, the way even most of us females will assume it's just a 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 days kind of an event. And sometimes this is why we don't really appreciate when we say, you know, the menstrual hygiene needs to be prioritized even as a country. So this is actually why. This is a whole process.
It's so, and I think if you even think about it from the perspective of being the source of life, I think that puts it into context, where you realize if something is the source of life, it can't be coming out of nowhere, you know, where you're suddenly like, oh, I have my period and then it's finished. You know, it doesn't work that way. If it's the source of life, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. There's a lot of, oh, the egg has to be released and then now it's waiting to be fertilized. After, you know, okay, it's not been fertilized, it has to come out somehow, but it has to travel in order to come out. For it to travel from that area into now coming out as your period, that is a process. And all those things, there's hormonal changes that are happening, there's physical changes that are happening, whether that's, you know, experiences you're having with your back, it's a whole, it's literally the whole month is your menstrual cycle, and the more you know about it, the more powerful you feel.
And we are here to learn. That's why we are learning about that.
Yes.
All right. I mean, if this is actually the case, then, I mean, this is really something very important that needs to be talked about constantly, also for people to understand and have better knowledge and insight about it. Then why does, up until now, people are so scared to talk about menstrual cycle or menstrual hygiene? Why is still there period shame? We are living in the 21st century, have technology. What really is the issue?
You know what? I wish I had a singular answer to that. But one of the things that, you know, and I've shared this multiple times, where I always say, there's something that we are doing as a society that's not right, because no child is born feeling ashamed about their period, or they don't even understand what it is. So we're saying something to these children to where by the time they get to 9, 10, 11, you know, when they're having their period, they're afraid. And also for the boys, where by the time they're getting to that age and they see their friends having their period, they feel like it's something they should make fun of.
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing, right? And so something is happening in our society where we're not holding menstruation in the place of honor and respect that we should hold it, because when you think about it being the source of life, I mean, that is a very respectable thing.
That in itself makes it important.
So important, where we're doing a disservice to women who bring life into the world by shaming them for this thing that actually enables them to do it. It's a vessel of life. And so for us to shame women is a really, we're going contrary to what we should be doing. We should be uplifting. We should be respecting and honoring this thing. And so, you know, I don't know if you heard that story a few years ago of the girl that she got up in class and she'd started her period, and, you know, people made fun of her and she ended up committing suicide. It was about 2 years ago.
And actually there have been numerous stories in regards to that, not just only that in itself. Quite a number of them.
But I think we have to start educating our boys on that. You know, because the person that made fun of her was a male teacher, unfortunately, which he should have known better. He's an adult. He should have known better. But why didn't he know better?
Education was lacking.
Education was lacking. And so we have to not only put the girls in a corner and say, hey, this is, you know, this is this thing, we hide it from the boys, but we have to start from a young age. Like, I have a 3-year-old son, and now when he comes into the bathroom and he sees a pad and he asks me, Mommy, what's this? I tell him that's a pad. It's just an age-appropriate conversation to help him understand that this is a part of life for women. And so I'm hoping that by the time he's 13 and he has a friend that has a leak, he's the kid that's running and saying, oh, let me help you, let me go run and get you a pad, because he should.
And now he knows. Doesn't come as a surprise to him.
Yes.
Let's explore that a bit. Bringing this kind of conversation to our males, and also making them understand, because the way we're talking about that particular story of that young girl who committed suicide as a result of what the male teacher did to her, and what you're saying is that there's been numerous cases of that. It's just not only one. Some even go untold. And some males will say, I really want to be part of this conversation, I just don't know how.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's a really interesting point that you bring up. And I always ask back, so why don't you know how? You know, why don't you know
so
how?
I don't understand how this thing works. Make me understand.
Then let's talk about it, because it starts with conversation, right? If you weren't taught as a child, I mean, I have a spouse, people have, you know, different partners, and so talk to your partner, because also as women, we hide it. We hide it because we're saying, oh, I'm on my period. You know, you're grabbing your tampon, you're grabbing your pad, and you're hiding it, and you're, you know, going to the bathroom out of a meeting. But when you're hiding it, that's also reinforcing that man saying, I don't know how to have this conversation because I feel like it's something that should be hidden. But really, why are we hiding it? Do you hide when you say, oh, excuse me, I'm going to the bathroom? Do you hide that? No. It's a natural process. You just go, right? And so that also, I mean, it takes the women for us to bring the men into this conversation. It has to be a conscious decision for us to say, yes, we are going to include you because it matters. Because, you know, a lot of these men have daughters, they have wives, they have sisters. And so for them not to be included is also a disservice to them, because then they're not able to be present in the lives of their loved ones as they should be. You know, I have a girlfriend who mentioned to me how, you know, she was sending her boyfriend to go and grab some products for her, and he wouldn't go.
That's again another issue, by the way.
First of all, for me, I'd be like, okay, goodbye. Like, that's it. That finished. Why is this a big deal to you? Because, I mean, if we can be intimate, then why would you not care for such a big part of what allows me to be me?
And what's the big deal in getting menstrual products?
Yes, why are you so ashamed, you know? Why is that a big deal? You should, I mean, to me, you should proudly be walking in and saying, oh, my spouse needs this, so I'm just gonna go pick it up and, you know, you take it home to her. So the fact that you feel embarrassed, you know, and it's a much bigger question, because it just starts from childhood. You know, something that's instilled in childhood is very hard to work around. It's really hard to get people over that hump of things that they're taught when they're children. But I think, you know, sometimes with older generations, it's a little bit more difficult, but we have an opportunity to fix it with the children, you know.
Okay, in regards to that, even as you talk about how we can bring our males into this kind of conversations, because there's a lot that actually really wants to be part of it. And to be very genuine, some don't even really know how exactly to be part of this conversation. So do you feel or think that there's a place of culture in this? Because case in point, the way you're mentioning that perhaps there's a spouse, just from, you know, the story that you've given, they don't even know, they can't go to the shop to get a menstrual product for their spouse. So do you think there's a place of culture in this, and what can be done? Because, you know, culture is deep-rooted.
Culture is deep-rooted, but not all culture is good. Right? When we talk about FGM, we talk about the, you know, the pros and cons and, you know, all that. It comes from somewhere. Just because it's part of our culture doesn't mean that we have to hold on to it if it's not good. There's beautiful things about culture that we should absolutely keep, but there's some things that we need to unlearn because it is harming us. When you have girls who are committing suicide because of this, literally our lives depend on us unlearning this thing. We have to unlearn this whole shame around periods, because our girls' lives depend on it. You know, so I think, you know, you do bring up a good point. I also think that we just have to sometimes look at things and say, okay, how is it serving us? We've done this for years and years and years. We've seen the results. Can we try something different?
Especially if it's not of any benefit.
Yes, because, you know, there's that saying that says, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Exactly.
So if the result that we're getting is girls being so embarrassed that, one, they're not telling their moms even when they start their period. You know, I've seen stories of girls who use toilet paper for months and months before they ever tell their mom that they started their period, because they feel like they're doing something wrong, right? So if we have girls that are so afraid that they won't even tell their parents, okay? And then you have girls that are committing suicide because they've been embarrassed. Obviously, this thing is damaging girls in our society. So we have to do better for our girls. And the thing is, when we think about society, sometimes we think, oh, every individual, you know? And so this girl is committing suicide here. But how does that affect her community? How does that affect her family, right? Because her family dynamics will never be the same once she's committed suicide. And what does that mean for the girls that she was in class with, right? It affects everybody. It affects each and every one of us, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers. So we owe it to young girls, especially, to do better.
Wow, you speak about that so passionately. I mean, just brings that whole idea that indeed we really need to do something. So then does it mean that we have a long way to go? Or at least we are making some strides?
You know, the fact that we're here having this conversation on Good Morning Kenya, we're making some strides. Because a few years ago, we would never have this conversation.
On national TV, on a morning show.
Yes, we would never. So we are making some strides, but we do still have a long way to go too. And we just have to keep chipping at it and keep working intentionally. You know, the reason, again, when we think about the fact that our girls' lives depend on this, we have to do better. We have to put in the work, and everybody has to do their part. But that's not to discredit the fact that we have come a long way, and we just need to continue going.
All right, we definitely appreciate the fact that we at least are making some progress, but also cannot move away from the fact that we still have a long way to go. So in your capacity as Cindy, what are you doing to change the narrative and at least bring the conversation on the table?
Oh, wow. Those are some great questions. I mean, in my capacity as Cindy, there's a few things that I am doing. The fact that I'm here talking with you today,
that's one
of the things. I know that my voice is one of my biggest assets, and so I have made a conscious effort to use it to be there for girls, to create a space that's safe for young girls especially. And then the other thing that I've done is create Vaji Life, and you know, we've got our website vajilife.com. If you go and look at that, you see the products that we have. They're safe menstrual hygiene products. We focus on ensuring that we stay away from chemicals, we stay away from dyes, we stay away from, you know, just the plastic that's causing a lot of the issues that women are experiencing here with menstrual products. So that's one. But also when you look at Vaji Life, you see the imagery that we put out. You see, we've been very intentional about how we present everything. And a big part of that has been really in uplifting the pride of women, uplifting the beauty of menstruation, and saying, yes, we menstruate and it's the source of life and we're very proud of it.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing. And so that's a big message that we're sending out, and we're trying to ensure that, you know, because period shame is over here, right? It's the extreme, it's like the bad thing. It's on the extreme end. And so we're hitting it with extreme pride in menstruation, extreme pride in being women, extreme pride in being the source of life. And we're hoping that as we hit it, then we can come to a middle ground where now this is a safe thing to talk about. It's a beautiful thing, and our society recognizes how honorable it is.
It is. All right, I wouldn't really want us not to talk about the substandard product, because just the way we're mentioning 3 years ago, there was an ongoing hashtag, and we might perhaps not mention the product per se, but let's talk about this substandard product, because that's not the only one. You know, there are quite a number of them, especially in the market. And that goes back to, you know, if I can mention maybe common Kenyans per se. I mean, as it is in itself, it's already difficult for a good number of women to even access these products. And even for those that even go the extra mile and get them, some of them are substandard. So what does this mean about what we are doing to perhaps our women, and when it comes to the access of this menstrual product?
You know, it's really unfortunate, because I think one of the biggest benefits that just the consumer industry has is a lack of information when it comes to consumers, right? And so you notice even with Vaji, what we've done is we're very forward with our customers. We say, you go on our website, you're going to see our product information, because we believe in you knowing what you're putting in your body. We absolutely believe that is important, and it's our responsibility as the company that you're buying from to tell you what's in your product. And so that lack of knowledge, that gap between the consumer and, you know, the person that's manufacturing this product, that tends to cause a problem, because there's a lot of gray area there, right? A lot of the products that we're consuming, unfortunately, are usually, you know, brought in by companies that are not Kenyan. And when they're brought in by companies that are not Kenyan, there's also a certain disconnect when it comes to who's going to use these products. Because when you're utilizing a product, when you're bringing in a product, and you know that your mother, your sister, your wife, your friend is going to use it, you think about it very differently. It's very personal. And so you're trying to ensure that you are bringing in a good quality product that is safe to use, right?
Yeah.
But then when there's this disconnect where multinational corporations are bringing in these products, and maybe a man in somewhere in the US is making a decision on the product that's brought to Nairobi, Kenya, what reason does he have to ensure that you, Doreen, you as a woman in Nairobi, Kenya, get the best that they have to offer?
Okay.
Especially when he can still make money on giving you a product that's substandard.
Doesn't have an idea of the market that he's producing the products
No,
for.
he has no connection to you as an individual, and therefore unfortunately has no care for you as an individual. And so that's what we're seeing, where we see a lot of substandard products. And like you mentioned, many women have talked about these products. Many women have experienced them and talked about the side effects that they're having as a result. And so if that disconnect between the person that's making those decisions and you, the end consumer, is a big part of the problem. But then you see it translate in these multiple, different brands that are brought in, that, there's that care is no longer, it's just not there, because why should they care?
All right.
They don't know you.
Okay, this actually, it's really becoming even more emotional, because we really need to understand more about this kind of substandard products and what even we can do as a society or a community. But just hold that thought right there. We'll be coming back to explore more on that, and also some of the gains perhaps that she's made as a person to ensure that proper menstrual hygiene is given for women. Time for that break. We'll return with more of a lifestyle segment.
Bwana Motiso, pikipiki yako ndio hii.
Uko shoni yangu.
Hii pikipiki ni, unakumbuka uliekelea the lowest unique bid yako ilikuwa ngapi?
18 shillings.
18 shillings. Na unajua kuendesha hii gari?
Kidogo.
Haya, kitoko yako shika helmet, kifungu yako, chomoka na mali yako.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill, kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account, weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano, TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
将门起烟上
Majesty, I have been wronged.
You have? Do you think I will believe you or believe my own brother? If you confess right now, I'll only punish you alone. But when I find evidence later, your family will be killed.
It seems to me that he just said, Uncle.
Uncle, you were right. That's our best opportunity to kill him.
Quickly, bow.
Shooter, are you ready?
This week on Zurura, boys and their toys.
Tunaenda out of town.
Get to learn the benefits and beauty of running your own home garden.
That is so cool and clever.
Demystifying fishing as an elitist sport and something anyone can do, including you.
So, shake, shake, move.
Yeah. Woo! That's all coming right up on Zurura. Find your adventure, only on KBC.
This is where it all began. As the mother of broadcasting in Kenya, you can trust KBC to bring you authentic news and programs to your living room.
Action!
As KBC, we take pride in our unrivaled heritage as Kenya's trusted national broadcaster. Commanding over 92% digital television signal coverage of our country, 23 radio services that cut across our entire language spectrum, a national, regional and international digital presence backed by the most experienced and top-notch broadcast professionals in the industry.
Very good evening to you.
The new look Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is truly ahead of the pack. Turn to the mother of broadcasting in Kenya for stories that resonate with our identity, our aspirations as a people united in purpose. Real stories of hard work, of passion, of creativity, of big dreams. Stories that cement our nationhood. Stories that bring us together as one. We take pride in our shared heritage and destiny. KBC, informing, educating and entertaining Kenyans as one nation. KBC, Kenya's listening, Kenya's watching.
Welcome back to the program. This is still Good Morning Kenya. If you're just joining us, you're still right in time for our ongoing conversation surrounding matters menstrual hygiene on our lifestyle segment. Still joined by Cindy Arunga, CEO of Vaji Life, helping us demystify and break down some of these issues that surround female hygiene and altogether menstrual hygiene. Cindy, before we went on break, we were talking about the substandard products. Yeah. And I still want us to stick there a bit, because sometimes you can sit here and talk about how it is important to continue sensitizing, offering information, but we are oblivious of the fact that perhaps someone even went and bought a product, and I want to pick the case in point of someone who even lives below $1. So I can imagine this someone that is struggling to even make ends meet. They tried the best they could to get a product, and the experience they had with the product was so off, so they went back to using rags or tissues.
And you know, what you bring up is so sad. And you know, for me, I've always believed that as a company, it is your responsibility to tell your consumers what's in your product. And the reason for that is very much exactly what you're saying, because people are spending their hard-earned money on your product. So for them to save up and buy your product and then end up with side effects, I mean, no, that's just wrong. That should not be happening. And unfortunately, you know, you see a lot of companies from the West, and you know, they'll bring in a product that perhaps was even banned in the US or banned in EU, and now they want to not make a loss on it, and so they'll bring it here and say, oh, we'll sell it here, and you know, we just want to not make a loss.
Imagine. And this is human life, because this is
human life. It's human life. And the thing is, especially when it comes to menstruation, when you think about the exposures to how sensitive that area is, when a woman has a child, whatever she's been exposed to, she's passing on to that child. It's the same. The birth canal is the same as the whole area that you're exposed to, right? And so that you're exposing when you're menstruating. And so whatever the woman is exposed to is passed on to the next generation. So companies, you know, we have to, I feel that company, and Vaji's stance is that as companies, we have to have a people-centric approach. People come first before profits. And we believe as a company that if you care about people, then profits will follow. Because people know that you care about them, they can trust you, they can trust your product, and they continue to have good experiences with your product, and therefore profits will follow. But you have to start by caring about people.
Wow. You know? Then Cindy, just from what you're talking about, I tend to feel and imagine that when you talk about this female hygiene and altogether menstrual hygiene, it's actually a kind of It's huge because, I mean, when you talk about that, it's just important to start with this conversation. Look at what you're mentioning. There are some missing links.
There are. And, you know, there are even links that we can't talk about on air because it gets a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can't mention names. But there are links that need to be addressed also in the system to protect women, to protect future generations, because whatever we're exposing our population to today, it's going to show up in the next generation.
And look at that ripple effect. Just from what you're explaining to us, passed down to this generation, the next again, passed down to the next one.
You're going to see diseases that we've never experienced before, and we're starting to see a surge of those. We're starting to see infertility rates like we've never experienced before, right? And why is that? We have to think about the things that we expose our bodies to, and in relation to what the input and output, right? Whatever we're putting in, we're going to get out something. Now, is that something that we're going to get out good or bad? That depends on what we're putting in, right? And me, Cindy, can sit here and talk. I can talk all I want, but it's also up to each and every one of us as consumers, first of all, to say what's in your product. Ask the questions. Ask the companies that you're buying from. Ask them. They owe it to you to tell you. Yeah, but also I can sit here and also try and empower you as an individual. But it's not just me. There's plenty of other girls here in Kenya like me who can use their voice to continue to empower everybody around us. You know, let's do it together. I can't do it by myself. I have a voice that I can use and I can use it, but I need you to use your voice too. Ask the hard questions.
It's a collective responsibility.
Yes, because we can do it together. It only changes if we all do it together.
Okay. Now, from what you are establishing is that it's actually not just the menstrual products. I mean, this is like an ongoing cycle where there's a tendency of the West to dispose of products which are not being used there anymore because of issue A or B, and they just come to the African continent, most African countries in the African continent. So what is the place of us as Africans in terms of then making our own products that best suits us as Africans?
That is a fantastic thing you bring up, because again, nobody's going to care about you or your people like you are going to care about you and your people, right? And we have to realize that. We have this, it's what I call a colonial mindset, where we say, oh, if it's from the West, it's good.
It's good enough.
It's good, and we don't question. Actually, those people in the West are very far removed from you. Why would they care? And most of the time you find that whatever they're selling in the West, even though it might be packaged to look similar to here, it's a completely different product. That is not by mistake, that is by design.
So they know what they are doing.
Absolutely, they know, because the women in the States are not complaining about those same products, even though they're sold on their shelves, right? Because that product that is sold there is completely different from what's sold here to you under the same name. Okay, and the minute we realize that, then we'll start to see that we can all create solutions. You know, there are problems in different parts of, you know, when it comes to consumer products. There are these issues, like you mentioned, it's not just menstrual hygiene, but you too can create a solution, because nobody's going to care like you care about yourself, about your sisters, about your brothers. So, like you said, there are all these things that need some fixing, and we can all create solutions. You know, step into who you are, step into the problems that you see around you, and see them as opportunities to create solutions. I can do it, and if I can do it, you can do it too, because I know many women like me who can speak, who went to school, who can, who are smart women. So it's not just me. You can do it too. Create solutions around you.
This conversation was just beginning to take a different turn, which I would have loved us to explore, but due to the constraint of time, we have to end it here, Cindy. But thank you so much for your insights. I mean, this has been such an insightful conversation, just trying to understand the dynamics surrounding menstrual hygiene, because we can sit and keep talking about information, but where are our men? How can we bring them into this conversation? We can still talk about the substandard products, but what can we do as Africans and make our own? Because we also have minds, brains, and hands to do these things.
Yes.
So why not?
There's no monopoly on the smart.
Yeah, no monopoly of knowledge.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Cindy, again for your time and for the insights.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation.
Good enough. So this is where we bring the conversation to a close on our lifestyle segment, but we're not yet done with Good Morning Kenya. Still more ongoing after the break.
sasa kuna shughuli yote ambayo zinaendelea hadi Dengo atakaposafiri tena.
Basi ni pesa zako. Fanya kazi yako ofisini. Msijiletelete kwa compound yangu tena mwajifungia ndani ya magari usiku na watafua nyote wawili. Nipishe.
Lakini Kate, wewe unajua umuhimu wa ndoa?
My house is off limits. Tumeelewana?
Wewe alinikosa nafaka wake. Sasa amekutuma wewe mtoto wa dadangu uje unimalize.
Mkanye mke wako. Mkanye mke wako sana. Mimi si rika lake wala toshani kimaisha.
Majesty, I have been wronged.
You have? Do you think I will believe you or believe my own brother? If you confess right now, I'll only punish you alone. But when I find evidence later, your family will be killed.
It seems to me that he just said, Uncle.
Uncle, you were right. That's our best opportunity to kill him.
Quickly, Bao.
And welcome back. After ladies' affair, now it's men's affair. Let's talk about money, let's talk about finance, and let's talk about economy. It's all about money, it's about economy and finance, something that is affecting all of us. And without money, without our finances put right, things can never go well. And with me in studio, I have Mr. Peter Macharia Kamau, who is the CEO of Jijenge Credit Limited, who is going to help us just to talk about finances, how to talk about the microfinance, talk about lending, talk about the SMEs, you know, all you need to know, and how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the industry in a big way. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Peter. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Yes.
And I'm happy to see a fully rebranded KBC studio.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes.
It looks nice.
We are doing this, we are doing this. It's a cold season out there. I don't know how cold the finance and the SMEs and the lending industry is all about. Are you also in the cold?
Well, partly yes, partly no. The cold is still there with the finance sector.
Yes.
Because of the background where we've started. It was really affected by COVID.
Yes.
And as you know, most businesses closed. Others are operating on half threshold. Others are wiped out. But others are trying to start up all over again. And by and large, as you know, Kenyans are very resilient. They are very optimistic in everything that they do. There are those businesses that are coming up and catching up with the situation. However, as Jack Ma said, we just need to, during the COVID period, we need to survive, not to make any profits. And therefore, as long as you're able to pay rent, school fees, and meet your basic requirements, paying salaries and all that, you're good to go as you wait for COVID to disappear.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, are most people now taking up the SMEs, the loans, and the microfinance? Are people now coming back generally after the COVID? Because the situation is not going to, to normalize anytime soon. It's going to be with us for some time.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yes, people are coming for facilities.
Yeah.
And we've seen a huge uptake of facilities. But this time the setup and the approach is different.
Yes.
Because initially people used to have a quick uptake of funds. But now, because of the taxes and the margins, low profit margins,
yes,
people are very keen on their installments. They are really calculating. You explain to somebody today, he goes home, sleeps over it, then comes back tomorrow. Because for readjustments, all those things, that's what is happening on the ground. People are very thorough, very keen, because the road ahead is not so clear.
So it seems that the rate of the SMEs in the country is quite low right now. Why? Why is that so?
Yes, the uptake of SME credit is a bit low, but the main reason is the one I've told you, because it's very uncertain. You're not sure whether if you buy goods now, the purchasers will buy or the sales will be high, because one, the buying power is very low currently. The net amount that most people are taking home for their either salaries or their businesses is also quite low. And therefore, those are major factors. And also the issue of the COVID prevalence.
Yes.
The issue of vaccination, actually, it's like a vaccination process and the uptake of facilities are going hand in hand. The more people, the more we vaccinate more people, there's a lot of hope and now certainty, and therefore people are taking some facilities.
So what can be done to spur the uptake in the private sector?
Well, number one, we need to really come up with grants and funds that can support the private sector. Number two, we need to really readjust and try to mitigate. Maybe we request the government to mitigate on the tax levels. Then number three, the organizations, maybe government organizations like counties that are holding funds, they need to be requested to pay the SMEs, because MSMEs and the people with disabilities, most of them are the ones that supply these organizations with what they need. And as you know, most counties have not been paying. So that's a lot of, those are very huge funds that have been locked on the side of the counties.
Yes.
So if they are released, it will spur that growth.
Yes.
Yes.
In terms of, we have the new Finance Act in place right now, and it's going to raise the mobile money, the excess duty on the mobile lending.
Yes.
Are you much afraid that this might lock so many people from taking this kind of loans, because most people depend on the mobile money transfers and the small loans that people take on mobile phones?
Well, it's true. It might affect the uptake. But on the flip side, as you know, the people will need the funds. What might also be on the higher side is the level of bad debts, because mobile loans, most mobile loans are not secured.
Yes.
That's
so
why the interest rates. That's why the interest rates are usually, I think the minimum currently is M-Shwari, or I think the minimum rate is 7.5% per month. Therefore, and the reason for that is because, one, it is unsecured, it is a high-risk facility, and therefore, if you add 20% to the 7.5,
yes,
it will be almost 9% interest per month, and therefore the level of bad debts, the level of non-payment, the level of write-offs, the risk will be higher.
It's been higher.
Yeah, but it might not affect the uptake.
Yes.
Because the finance need is there.
Yes.
Yes.
But it's, when you look at the government is also proposing that when you take a loan, the same loan will be taxed.
Yeah, they are looking at, the government is looking at so many ways and avenues of taxing funds.
Yeah. Is this a good move, really?
Well, currently, the government and KRA, they are looking for ways and means of getting as much taxes as possible.
Yes.
Well, it might slow the uptake of MSMEs loans because as a business, you also pay taxes.
Yeah.
You pay VAT, you pay PAYE, you pay all those other taxes, duty and all that. So now if you pay a certain percent on tax on your loan, it might reduce. If you are taking $1 million, you might be tempted to take half, so that at least you can pay lower taxes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And how is this going to affect the loan uptake? Because right now, somebody said that, for example, the way you said, I want to take $1 million, and the government is still going to tax this $1 million bob, which you've also taxed.
Yes.
Are you seeing a situation where the kind of the business that is running right now, the micro lenders and the SMEs, will be affected in a way?
Partly yes, and partly no. They will be affected because now they'll have to do additional reporting, tax reporting.
Yeah.
Number two, as I've told you, the uptake will be a bit lower. So if they are targeted to give out $1 billion, they might not achieve those targets. And then number three, people would like to take that in the initial stages.
Yeah.
People might want to take the stance of the wait and see. Let me see how this new tax is going to be operationalized, how it's going to be to affect me, and all that. Yeah.
And so, in terms of business now, the common mwananchi might not understand how this thing is going to be affected.
Yes.
What are you as a micro lenders?
Yes.
I know you have an organization, you have got a voice. Are you looking at a way that you are going to have a discussion with the government so that this can be regulated? Just to give you some reprieve a bit.
Definitely, I know some BMOs are going to engage the government. We are members of most of those BMOs. And I am privileged to sit in some of those committees, the finance committees of those organizations. And yes, we are engaging the government and KRA on those parameters.
Yes.
So that we can see some reprieve for our members or for Kenyans in general. So the tax burden can be moderated so that you are not taxed right, left, and center.
Yeah.
Because if they tax the loan, they are taxing you even before you even go and buy the goods. And most of the goods that are purchased, especially locally, they are already taxed. Yes.
So we have got like double taxes.
Double or triple taxes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the non-performing loans. Most of the commercial banks in the country are performing dismally and poorly because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
We have got non-performing loans. We have got unpaid bills and pending bills and what have you. How has this affected you as the SMEs, as the micro lenders?
Well, yes, non-performing loans is a major pain in the industry, and we've really tried to come up with as different and as many strategies of managing it as possible, because we need to understand where you are coming from.
Yeah.
Because the major dent or the major challenge came about after March last year, when most customers were not able to pay their facilities as scheduled and on time. However, we've been trying to talk to the customers,
yes,
to repackage the facilities, to give them moratoriums, to restructure the facility so that at least if you're earning 100,000 and you're earning 50,000, you can readjust that installment to suit the 50,000, either by increasing the period of the facility or repackaging it so that it can suit your current financial status. And I know most banks, the provisions have been, the budget provisions have been quite huge. Yeah.
We have got so many unregulated, macro lenders in the country. Some of them are running, operating illegally, and I'm so sure you know about this. And they have greatly affected the operations and the business in general, in the business. So how is this going to be affected now that there's so many across the country? How is it going to be regulated, even as in your board, as your communities, the way you operate, the way you people are making sure that all these unregulated micro lenders are not in business? Okay, but before you answer that, let's just take a very short break, and then when we come back, let's go and talk more about the proliferation of unregistered micro lenders in the country affecting the business in the micro and credit limited in the country. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Be sure, check out for a KDIC sticker in your banking hall. KDIC, protecting your deposits.
Bwana Motiso, pikipiki yako ndio hii.
Uko shoni yangu.
Hii pikipiki ni unakumbuka uliekelea the lowest unique bid yako ilikuwa ngapi? 18 shillings. Na unajua kuendesha hii gari?
Kidogo.
Haya, kitoko yako shika helmet, kifungu yako, chomoka na mali yako.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bid yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bid yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bid ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Praises unto God. Give praise to Rastafari. And our praises unto God. When I remember seeing her first, she was standing in the club all alone. Lonely streets we tread together, singing songs. She has a good.
What does this number mean to you? A pack leader? A winner? Or just a number? To us, it means freshness, boldness, vibrancy, and heritage. That's why at KBC Channel 1, we make it easier for you to pop up your family entertainment to a fresh, exciting, and colorful bouquet.
And welcome back. We are still having a conversation here. Money matters. We love to talk about money matters. It started even way back in the Bible. So with me here is still Mr. Peter Masharek Mawi, the CEO of Jijenge Credit Limited. Let's just talk about money matters today. Kidogo too, all right? So before we went on a break, CEO, we talk about the proliferation of the micro lenders who are not registered in the country. How are they affecting your business? More so, we have got these mobile money lenders. Yes.
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah.
Well, what I personally can say is that there's no harm with or rather, what has been happening is investors have been trying to look for businesses that they can do, and one of them, which is imagined, is that micro lending has a lot of income or money.
Yes.
And therefore, whether you are skilled in it or not skilled in it, you put your money there. And that's why you find there have been so many mobile lending platforms and apps that have been that have been coming up. And then there are also micro-lenders, non-deposit micro-lending organizations that have also been coming up. Especially like before COVID, there were so many, but when COVID came, most of them vanished or closed.
Yeah.
But for the mobile lenders, that's, the challenge, the biggest challenge with them is that they don't have physical offices. They don't have, you're not able to engage them on one-on-one.
Yes.
In case there's a complaint, you're not able to, you can't physically see them. And therefore, and even their way of operation. You see them, they look at, they're able to tap into, those apps are very tech savvy, or those companies, those mobile lenders. Their apps are so advanced that it can tap into all your contacts. Once you say accept, it taps into your entire contact database in your phone. And in case you fail to pay, because they don't have any form of security.
Yeah, because most people always find their message, because personally I've received like 2 or 3 messages sending me so and so, took a loan with I don't know which kind of provider, and now tell him or her to do this and that. Is that a good idea?
It's not a good idea, because money matters are very personal and very confidential. And I believe when you're borrowing, you'd hate to, I think very few people would like to know where you've gotten you borrowed your money. Yeah, because you might be borrowing from the mainstream banks, or from micro lenders, or from the mobile apps. And situations drive you into doing that. So that's purely personal and private and confidential. Even your own close relatives should not know. And therefore, that kind of that way of engaging or having some what I call collateral damage, it's not the best way to solve a problem. The best method is a traditional type of banking, whereby you come yourself by your own violation. You walk into a finance organization and say that you want to borrow $1 million, and to confirm and to ensure that and to give the financer the confidence that you're going to pay, you provide some form of security, either a logbook or a title deed or your payslip or something like that. And it should only be between you and the financer. Nobody, even if you default, nobody else should be involved.
Another third party, unless the guarantor.
Even guarantors, like at Jijenge Credit, you don't even ask for guarantors. Fine, you might ask for the next of kin, but even if you fail to pay, we will never engage the next of the next of kin, where is so and so. Because at times it happens that maybe you've traveled abroad, and wherever you are,
you cannot access the system to pay.
You can't accept the system to pay. So the next of kin can say so and so is out of the country, and he went to a country maybe where there are no financial institutions, or there's no M-Pesa to service the facility. That's it. We don't even tell the next of kin why we are calling you, or why we are looking for you.
Why? Let me just ask this question. There is a debate by the government to regulate the micro lenders. Is this a good idea?
Yes, personally I feel it's a good idea, because one, most of those mobile lending platforms, or even some micro lenders, their source of funding has been quite questionable. And therefore, to avoid and to ensure that we follow the rules of avoiding situations whereby we get funding from maybe terrorism or fraudulent means, or corrupt money, or stolen funds. The CBK and the government is doing the right thing to try and find out where did you get your funds, because it will be foolhardy for the government to allow you pumping money stolen. Maybe you are, for example, you are one of the COVID billionaires. You stole money from people who are sick, from KEMSA, then you come and open a microfinance. Surely it's not helping, because that person should be in the gallows.
Yes.
Should be removed from the system, so that the system should be the currency circulating locally should be genuine currency, should be genuine funds, should be clean funds.
Yeah.
So nobody should be given any opportunity to come and wash or clean their funding or their ill-gotten wealth through a regulated system.
Let me ask you this question. Most people, and even most of the lenders, micro lenders,
yes,
there have been some situations where you find people bank with certain micro lenders, and all of a sudden they go down.
Yes.
They disappear.
Yes.
How has this been you as the micro lenders trying to avoid such kind and address these kind of issues? Because you find you have got like almost 500,000 people banking with you, and then all of a sudden you go under receivership.
Yes.
Then with all the money, they disappear. So what are you doing so that, moving forward, you avoid, or some of these companies avoid such kind of scenarios in future?
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah.
The protection of public funds or deposits is done by an organization called KBC, and it falls under bank supervision, central bank supervision. They're supposed to ensure that any person who is collecting money or deposits from the public, be it a SACCO or be it a microfinance or be it a bank, that money is safe and secure. When I was in the bank, we used to do liquidity returns every 10th, 20th and 30th of every month. So and we send them to CBK so that the CBK can see whether the liquidity of the institution you are reporting for is within the range, and the funds are secure, and more so they are insured. Because it is the responsibility of CBK to ensure that if an organization sinks or closes, the funds are safe, and members of the public are given a good refund. And how they've done it is that there are those organizations that don't take any deposits. Like Jijenge Credit Limited, we are a non-deposit taking microfinance. You are not allowed to take a single coin from any member of the public. We fund our loans by borrowing from local banks.
Yes.
Then number two, if you start taking deposits, there's a license fee you pay at central bank. Either a deposit taking microfinance or a bank, you must pay a certain deposit that will act as a safe security.
Yes.
Just in case you go under. That same funding is what will be used to pay over and above the insurance that you cover maybe every year or whatever period of, depending on the deposits you hold.
Yes.
So therefore, I believe the system is well managed, and nobody should open an organization and start collecting funds without getting the proper documentation and the proper paperwork from the relevant government securities.
In 30 seconds, how are you planning to cushion your customers as Jijenge Credit Limited against such kind of happenings as Jijenge Credit Limited? In 30 seconds, please.
At Jijenge Credit, number one, in terms of loan facilities that we give, all our customers are given the opportunity to come and reorganize and reschedule and repackage their facilities to suit their depressed financial incomes. And then number two, as we don't take any deposits from any member of the public, and therefore the day we will start taking it, we will have paid CBK the 100 million that is required to register a deposit taking microfinance.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Thank you so much. That is Peter Macharia Kamau, the CEO of Jijenge Credit Limited, talking to us matters money and how your finances are safe with any of the micro lenders. That is it. But meanwhile, coming up next.
In fulfilling one of the government's big four agenda pillars, the National Hospital Insurance Fund says its all systems go in the realization of the universal health care. Come the 11th of this month, NHIF will transition to digital operations.
If we are going to have all Kenyans on board, to be able to monitor, to provide access, to ensure we pay on time, we must adopt electronic and digital platforms.
The public medical insurance provider says a number of reforms have already been achieved to facilitate quality healthcare services for all.
Amendment of the NHIF to align the UHC agenda and the review of NHIF organizational structure and its reorganization.
Among beneficiaries of the nationwide rollout of the affordable healthcare programs are operators in the border sector, thanks to a memorandum of understanding with the umbrella body.
Pandemic has not spared the industry either, and since most of the border operators are self-employed, we cannot meet the cost of our health. We will be presenting to you some package which includes fully comprehensive insurance, includes personal accidents, all the legal liability, all the things that we've talked about.
All right, here we are again about matters, and the show still continues. You can still talk to us via on social media, and let's talk about matters NHIF. And with me once again, I'm joined by the CEO himself, Mr. Peter Kamunyo. But CEO, good morning, and good to see you once again. It's a cold day. The last time we talked, it wasn't this cold. I don't know how you're feeling this cold, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Victor, for having me on the show. Good morning, Kenya. Yes, it is indeed cold. The last time we spoke, I was in Mombasa. It was a lot warmer than it is here in Nairobi.
Exactly. So you have been, for the last couple of weeks, if I get it right, you have embarked seriously on registration and to an e-claim processing system. How far have you gone with this so far?
Thanks, Victor. This process, it's part of our digitization process, and it is forming part of the major reforms that NHIF is undertaking. And in these reforms, as they had been also highlighted by the HEFREP report, there are about 55 of them. And so far, we've actually achieved about 34. And the balance, also some of it involves what is also in Parliament right now, that is the NHIF Act Amendment, among many other Act Amendments. Now, the digitization is a very, very key part of it, because as we are looking to scaling up to universal health coverage, whereby all Kenyans will have access to this quality care without suffering financial hardship, it will mean that the numbers are going to be very big. It will mean that monitoring is going to be expanded. It will also mean that the payment to hospitals will be highly increased. So to be able to achieve this is why we embarked on the digitization process, which starts first of all with the member identification. Victor, I'm sure you'll recall, as we use our cards right now, the card is usually given to the principal member. So if you are here in studio and your family is at home and they need to go to hospital, you must find a way of getting the card to them at home. So this was also cumbersome in terms of accessing care. So what we have embarked on is to ensure that all our members, all of them, we capture their biometrics, that is their fingerprints, and it is all the 10 fingers. And it is not only for the principal member, it also includes all the dependents. So, yes, and so one of the key things that this is going to do for us is that it's going to improve access. You also know that in situations where, let's say, you're involved, unfortunately, in a road traffic accident, or you fall unconscious, people might not be able to access your wallet and your card. But then with a fingerprint, you're able to be taken to hospital, and that can be able to access your records and also get you treatment in good time. So we have embarked on that countrywide. It's a scale-up process, and we are going region by region, and this process is going to continue.
Right. What is your timeline, and how is the reception to this far?
Oh, wow. The reception has been really good because we are explaining the benefits of having your fingerprints registered. And for the biometric registration, it's a process that will continue. So even anytime you get to hospital, if you've not had your fingerprints taken, you will be able to have your fingerprints registered at that point of service. But what we are doing right now is to encourage everyone to register prior, because that's what we are doing at our branch offices, at road shows that we are doing, so that at the time when you have a need, when you're going to hospital, you don't also experience that small delay in getting your fingerprints enrolled. However, in order to ensure that the digital process is seamless, we are also introducing what we are calling the e-claim. And that e-claim is at the hospital. So we are interfacing our system with the hospital system to ensure that when our members, when Wanjiko gets care, that transaction, that claim is sent to NHIF in real time, and all the records are there. So this will ensure that we have rapid turnaround time. It will also ensure that we do not have the instances of fraud which we have been experiencing a lot in the region, and not only Kenya, also world over. So it is this migration to e-claim that we are going to do by the 11th of July. So from 11th of July, all the claims that will be coming from our 8,000 plus contracted hospitals are going to be on the e-claim platform.
So the question is here that most people have their cards, the NHIF card, including me. So does it mean that I will have to get another card, or I will just use the normal card that I have? How is it going to happen, sir?
Great question. Actually, the same card that you have, you'll be able to use. But interestingly, now that we are moving towards biometric identification and biometric verification, you actually don't need the card, because your card yako will be your fingerprint, and that will be able to identify you. It will be able to identify your dependents in an instant. So, and that is foolproof. You know, one of the also challenges that we used to have before is that you have your card there, your neighbor or somebody who needs care, they don't have a card, they're not members, you give them your card. So that is one of the things that this process is going to cure. So we can still use your card to show, but to access care after full biometric, you do not need the card.
All right. But I have to ask you these questions. I know during the process of registration, you have encountered certain people with no fingerprints. For example, those people who work in the quarry, for example, and some people have lost their, part of their fingers in an accident, or maybe working in industries and what have you. How are you going to make sure that even these people are captured during this digital migration so that they can have the registration done, even without fingerprints taken, all the 10 of them? What alternative do you have?
Yeah, that is something actually we have been experiencing. There are certain people in certain professions that you find getting their fingerprints is a little bit difficult. Like the people in, tea pickers, also like the quarry people, like you mentioned, and also some beauty things, like when you put henna, sometimes the fingerprints are not very clear. However, the first thing that we are doing to ensure that we capture is that we are taking all the fingerprints. So it's not only the thumb, we're taking all the 10 fingerprints. So even the little finger can be able to be registered and can be able to give you access. But in the unfortunate event that is completely unable, so what we've done is we would use then the override system, whereby they call the call center, and then the call center using our officers, would be able to authorize that treatment using our what I would say the analog system of pre-authorization. So to make sure that nobody actually misses care. And Victor, it's interesting you said that, because even as we're doing this, technology has moved 2 steps ahead, and in a not so far future, we'll also be looking at iris identification using your eye. So, and that one is more accurate and does not get affected by what you do for a living in terms of hands and fingerprints.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. There is this report that NHIF has lost and incurred a lot of losses due to dormant accounts and some members. Does this really worry you?
Victor, that actually is my biggest worry as I sit here. Because I'll tell you, like, as at the end of May, we had the registered members are about just over 10 million. But the active ones were only 50% in total.
That is 5 million.
That's about 5 million, yes. Now, when you break it down further, we have 2 groups of membership. We have what we call the formal sector, and those are statutory. They must contribute. That's like you and I who are employed, formally employed. And then we have the informal sector, or the voluntary members. Now, for the formal sector, that is the statutory, you and I, 25% were inactive. So only 75% were active. And that is because it is statutory. And the reason why we have less than 100% is many reasons. Companies closing, due to COVID and other economic issues. Others just plain default, but 75%. But if you go to the voluntary or informal sector, it is an equal number that is inactive. About 76% are inactive. Now, that is where the biggest problem is, because these people who are inactive, it means at some point, either last year or the year before, they were active, they enjoyed a benefit, one of our many benefits, to maybe a hip transplant, maybe delivery, or maybe some surgery, which could cost anywhere between 50,000 to 500,000, and then now they've defaulted. So that is where the biggest problem is, because in the principle of insurance, where you're pooling funds together, if you come in and you've paid 6,000 shillings, then you've gotten a benefit of 180,000, and then you disappear, it creates a strain. It creates a scenario whereby the fund can become unsustainable. In fact, for that group that is a voluntary, what we call informal sector, for every shilling that is contributed, we pay out 2 shillings. So it means, Victor, that this is not sustainable. And this is one of the reasons why the new law, which is in front of Parliament now, is proposing that all who can pay should pay. And then those who cannot pay to be identified and supported, so that everyone is on board.
Good question, and good point there. And that brings me to the next question. Those who can pay should pay. Those who cannot should be identified and a solution to be found. The question is, how will you identify those who are not able to pay and the government to chip in?
Actually, that process has already started, because this journey towards universal health coverage has been an ongoing journey. And if you use the last census and demographic health survey, it identified about 5.1 million households who are indigent, or meaning that they do not have enough to sustain, basic necessities of life, which includes healthcare. So this 5.1 million, the government has actually taken the first step in supporting them. And there is 1 million households of that 5.1 million who have been identified. And this identification has been in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and with the Department of Social Protection as well, and also involving the counties. So at the moment, actually a month ago, we finished registration of this first 1 million households, which is about 20% of all the indigents, and we are now just awaiting funding from Treasury to have them activated and be able to access care. So you see, Victor, now that is 20%. Now we have another 80% to be covered, and the government is actually looking forward to scaling that up. But we might not be able to get to all the 5.1 million. So what we're doing is we are also encouraging other donors, well-wishers, to come in and support, by either adopting a family, adopting a village, adopting a slum, adopting the poor people or the indigent people or the vulnerable people in our communities, and supporting them as part of CSR. And that is a campaign that I'm looking for that even you will support by supporting one. And it is only 6,000 shillings a month, a year, or 500 a month, or 17 shillings a day, which I believe many Kenyans can be able to support those of us who are unable to have basic necessities of life.
All right. Bonasinho, someone is asking here, how can one do the registration of the new biometric registration? How and where can one access this service?
Good. So the biometric registration, right now we are also, number one, we are doing campaigns in regions. I'm sure you've seen our teams are going around. This week they are in Eastern region. Last week they were in Rift Valley. Next week they'll be going to Central. So there are these campaigns that we are doing to do the mass biometric registration. Members can also go to any one of our 156 service points. These are our 70 branches, our 33 satellite offices, and any of the 53 Huduma centers where we are. So our Huduma center, any of our branches, satellites, you can go. We've also empowered and equipped the hospitals able to do the biometric registration. So if you just went to hospital to access care, you would be able to be biometrically registered there as well. That's why this process is going to continue for until everyone is registered. So right now we are scaling up to make sure that there are more people on board, but the process can also still continue as you go to access care at point of service.
Yes. All right. Question here from a lady called Lucy from Bomet. Lucy is asking, how will this biometric registration help now that, for example, she's in Bomet and the husband is working in Mombasa and there is an emergency down there in Mombasa? How will that kind of transaction happen seamlessly so that there is no, that back and forth of, we don't have your registration and all that? How will that work seamlessly for the services to be offered quickly?
Great. Actually, what she's describing is a problem that was there with the cards, whereby now the husband in Mombasa and somebody is now unwell in Bomet, you need to send the cards and all that. Now, with the biometric registration, every member of that family will be biometrically registered. So the husband will be registered, the wife and the dependents, the children in Bomet will be registered. So if they are going to hospital in Bomet, all they need to do is put their finger and they will be able to access services. So that is what we are looking at in terms of increasing efficiency as we scale up for UHC.
All right, absolutely. Now, there's this question here of, the fraudulent kind of claims by some of these hospitals around. I know you face certain cases. How is this this kind of registration stop this kind of activity once and for all? Are you determined to completely wipe it out of the system?
Yeah, medical fraud
yes.
is a big thing, and actually globally it accounts for about even 20 to 30% of the waste that is incurred. So and it happens in many ways, but the common ways of the medical fraud is number one, impersonation.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, you find I would give my card to my neighbor, my friend, my relative who is unwell, and we have very many cases of those. And sometimes we only catch them when it's too late, when somebody has passed on. Then you realize it's not the person who was in. So this impersonation is one way that we shall be able to reduce, because the person who is being or accessing benefits must be present at the hospital, because they have to put their finger there. So that will reduce that a lot. So you'll not be able to share your card with your friends and relatives. Then another mode of fraud that we pick up quite a lot is fictitious claims, whereby people actually sit down and manufacture claims which look very nice, proper diagnosis, properly signed, and they send them to us for payment. So when you're verifying such a claim on paper, it looks legit, so you're bound to pay. But there was no person who was actually in hospital. So that one also will be reduced, because the person must have been present at the hospital and must have opened that e-claim, and we avoid that paperwork because now the claim will be coming electronically. Then there are many other forms also. By doing the e-claim, it means that we'll be able to get information also in real time. So another way of fraud that happens is something called like upcoding. Now you find that maybe I go to hospital and I have a little pimple that is just removed, but then the claim comes back as a major surgery, specialized surgery with a higher amount. So that one now with the e-claim, because we'll be able to see it in real time, would be able to what we call adjudicate in good time and be able to see. So we are really looking forward to this digitization process, reducing that waste which is due to either fraud or inefficiencies, so that we can have more funds available to make sure that NHIF remains sustainable, and as we move forward, looking at even increasing benefits to our members.
Right. Actually, you are planning, and probably your office is planning to cut down services offered under the cover. In other words, patients will have to, for example, will be required to exhaust other avenues of payment before NHIF can come in. Is that so?
Victor, that is very inaccurate information or interpretation. Number one, you know that NHIF does not discriminate at all.
Yes.
There is no discrimination for age, there are no exclusions, and we pay for everything. Now, the issue that I think you're trying to raise is one of the issues that are contained in the bill, which we say that we should not be the ones paying for the first loss where somebody is insured. All right? And let me explain to you why this is so.
Yes.
When NHIF was formed, we were reimbursing based on rebates, daily rebates, whereby you go to hospital. So you remember the bed days. You get so many number of days in hospital times what our rebate is. And way back then, that used to be enough for the entire hospitalization. But then over time, as cost of care increased, we realized that the rebate on its own was not able to cover the entire hospitalization. And then also as we increased with sophistication, we realized that we needed to have other benefits on top. Now, from the period that we were doing rebates, the insurers wrote in their policy documents that they pay net of NHIF rebates, which is okay because everybody is a contributor. Now, come 2015, we introduced outpatient cover, and then we also introduced other packages. And these packages, like the dialysis package, we introduced the, surgical packages. We introduced the imaging package, for MRIs, CT scans, and all those. Now, when we introduced that, the unfortunate thing that has happened is that now the insurers started riding also on that. So we've ended up with a scenario right now that, Victor, if you and I are covered with another private insurance, if you go, let's say, for an MRI or some minor surgery, they are not going to pay a single shilling because NHIF picks the whole tab.
Yes.
Because the benefit that was defined is enough to cater for the cost of an MRI, the cost of a CT scan, the cost of even up to some specialized surgery. So you see, the scenario that we have gotten into is that now is supporting those who already support themselves and not supporting those for whom those benefits were intended for. So that is something that we want to correct. So we are not reducing. In fact, even with the bill, we will still continue to pay for the rebates. We still continue to pay for outpatient. So the benefits continue. But what we are saying is, if you're going for surgery, for example, and you have private insurance, if your private insurance is covering you up to 100,000, when that is exhausted, then NHIF comes in and pays its 100 or 180 or whatever it is in addition to that. So that way we are able to get social protection for everybody and not just the few who can afford. So that is what we are aiming for as we are looking at universal health coverage, where every Kenyan has access without financial hardship.
Dr. Thank you so much for joining us. That is Dr. Peter Kamunyo, the CEO of NHIF. We will have to do a follow-up on the registration of the biometric registration happening right now across the country. Up next, I'm joined by there you have him. That is a new Secretary General of NAT. That is Mr. Collins Ayu, joining me in studio live from his office. NAT Secretary General, good morning and good to have you on KBC. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Secgen, if you can hear me, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
All right. Thank you. Secgen, if you can hear me, thank you so much. Now, you have been... you have just come into office, and I'm so sure there is just a lot of work for you to do. First of all, congratulations for coming into the board. Now, tell me something that you are looking forward to achieve in your first year in office, Bwana Secgen.
Thank you so much, Victor. I want to tell you that Kenya National Union of Teachers, the membership has been very, very low. In fact, for a strong union, basically you go for membership. So the first thing I'll do is to bring back our members into being Kenya National Union of Teachers members back again after the drop from over 180,000 to 16,000. That's the first step.
Right. So, how would you describe your leadership, Mr. Knight, Mr. Secgen? How would you describe your leadership in the NAT fraternity?
Now, the leadership in the NAT fraternity, not being a union, is just like any other union. So the in a union basically is to embrace every other leader in line with consultation, and in fact, all the structures in the union must be consulted.
And now, there is this back and forth between NAT and TSC in terms of the payment, and TSC offered a non-cash mode of payment and salary increment to your members. How do you want to go about this, sir?
Now, as I told you, we must consult. It is not how I'll go about it. It is how we shall go about it. As I speak now, the National Steering has met, and I've invited the National Executive Council on Monday 12th, because Teacher Service Commission has called on us again to sit together on the 13th at Safari Park Hotel on the same. So I want to put it very straight. It is not how I shall go about it. It is how we shall go about it. And here, the voice of the Kenya National Union of Teachers must be through the decision-making organ, which is the National Executive Council. We are sitting with the NEC on Monday before I proceed with the National Steering to this meeting on Tuesday.
SG, you have actually rejected the counter offer and threatened to down your tools when schools reopen. That is the non-cash payment of salaries. Is this a situation as we speak right now?
Yes, the National Steering did not accept the counter offer from Teacher Service Commission on the 28th when we sat at Safari Park. So we asked Teacher Service Commission to go back, redo their counter offer, which shall be presented to us on 13th. Much of what is in the counter offer, we have some leakage, and that is what we want to discuss with the National Executive Council. The idea of downing our tools is neither here nor there. We have not sat to agree. So I cannot talk about downing our tools before we even sit with Teacher Service Commission. So it is neither here nor there.
So you have had a lot of engagements with the TSC and other stakeholders, and meetings and all that. What can you promise your members to this end?
No, we must promise our members better terms and conditions of service, and that is why we are here. The leadership of the Kenya National Union of Teachers is to provide better terms and condition of service to all our members through a well-structured negotiation with Teacher Service Commission. And I want to repeat, that is why we are headed to Safari Park on 13th. And before we take a position on 13th, we shall have been guided by the National Executive Council on 12th. That is Monday. Yes. You said that during your election, you said that you are not properly known. How would you describe yourself, even as you take your 5-year reign at the helm of NAT? Well. Yes, I did say it was a question from one of the members of the Fourth Estate, and the question was, why am I not known? I also did a question, do you expect me to go to the rooftop of KICC to be known? I must be elected to be known. And the issue of not being known amongst our members, that was not true. I've been elected right away from 1996, climbing the ladders to the top. So amongst my people, I'm known. So whoever would wish to know me now, here I am.
Right. Allow me to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we are going to continue with more questions and just to tell us more on what we should expect even moving forward in the NAT and of course the back and forth between NAT, TSC and other stakeholders. We'll be right back after this break.
Bwana Motiso, pikipiki yako ndio hii.
Uko shoni yangu.
Hii pikipiki ni unakumbuka uniekelea the lowest unique bid yako ilikuwa ngapi? 18 shillings. Na unajua kuendesha hii gari?
Kidogo.
Haya, kitoko yako shika helmet, kifungu yako, chomoka na mali yako.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bid yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bid yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bid ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Hayawi huwa mbiu ya mgambo imelia, na kwa kawaida ikilia kuna jambo.
Mgambo uliopo hapa ni rumba kavacha, odemba na sukus.
Tutakupromoshea midundo motomoto ya Afrika, iwe kutoka kaskazini, kusini, magharibi na hata mashariki.
Rumba is here in your living room.
Na popote ulipo.
This is Bridge of Congo.
Nzambe ya sambe la kati, ako sambe la nani?
Right here on KBC Channel 1. Where?
Baada ya miaka 19, kivumbi cha mashindano ya dunia ya Safari Rally kimerejea nchini Kenya kama alivyoahidi Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Wiki hii kwenye Project 254
tunajivunia si kama vijana na wale wenye wanatambua kudrive. At least serikali imetutambua.
Hizi mbio za Safari Rally naziona ziko sawa kwa kuwa zime boost kazi yetu kulingana na mapato yetu ya kila siku.
Hiyo vumbi ndio pesa. Yes, hiyo vumbi ikuje hivi ndio pesa inakuja. Tunashukuru sana kwa hiyo vumbi.
Ijumaa saa 2:30 jioni kwenye
There's music in the air, lots of loving everywhere. So give me the night. You make the night feel good. I want you to be say if you feel alright.
This is where it all began. As the mother of broadcasting in Kenya, you can trust KBC to bring you authentic news and programs to your living room. As KBC, we take pride in our unrivaled heritage as Kenya's trusted national broadcaster. Commanding over 92% digital television signal coverage of our country, 23 radio services that cut across our entire language spectrum.
Hapa ndio makao makuu ya burudani.
A national, regional and international digital presence backed by the most experienced and top-notch broadcast professionals in the industry.
A very good evening to you.
The new look Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is truly ahead of the pack. Turn to the mother of broadcasting in Kenya for stories that resonate with our identity, our aspirations as a people united in purpose. Real stories of hard work, of passion, of creativity, of big dreams. Stories that cement our nationhood. Stories that bring us together as one. We take pride in our shared heritage and destiny. KBC. Informing, educating and entertaining Kenyans as one nation. KBC. Kenya's listening. Kenya's watching.
Kwa sasa kuna shughuli yote ambayo zinaendelea hadi jengo atakaposafiri tena.
Basi ni pesa zako. Fanya kazi yako ofisini. Msijiletelete kwa compound yangu tena mwajifungia ndani ya magari usiku na watafua nyote wawili. Nipishe.
Lakini Kate, wewe waujua umuhimu wa ndoa?
My house is off limits. Tumeelewana?
Wewe alinikosa nafaka wake. Sasa amekutuma wewe mtoto wa dadangu uje unimalize.
Mkanye mke wako. Mkanye mke wako sana. Mimi si lake wala tushani kimaisha.
Majesty, I have been wronged.
You have? Do you think I will believe you or believe my own brother? If you confess right now, I'll only punish you alone. But when I find evidence later, your family will be killed.
It seems to me that he just said, Uncle.
Uncle, you were right. That's our best opportunity to kill him.
Quickly, Bao.
Baada ya miaka 19, kivumbi cha mashindano ya dunia ya safari rally kimerejea nchini Kenya kama wiki hii kwenye Project 254.
Tunajivunia si kama vijana na wale wenye wanatambua kudrive, at least serikali imetutambua.
Hizi mbio za safari rally naziona ziko sawa kwa kuwa zime boost kazi yetu kulingana na mapato yetu ya kila siku.
Hiyo vumbi ndio pesa. Yes, hiyo vumbi ikuje hivi ndio pesa sasa inakuja. Tunashukuru sana kwa hiyo vumbi.
Ijumaa saa 2:30 jioni